Mayday rally in the city has residents calling for good jobs and workers' rights. And police are investigating what caused the driver of a truck to end up in a pond off of Interstate 395. Good Monday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andy Lacombe. A large crowd rallies outside Worcester City Hall Monday as the annual Mayday rally brings together different community groups in support of workers' rights and social justice. Dozens gathered outside City Hall Monday afternoon. May Day is known as International Workers' Day. Speakers from the Worcester Community Labor Coalition talked about topics like Worcester's TIF policy, the need for transparency, and racial and gender justice. They say economic development should equal community development.
What we want to celebrate is solidarity among all workers. I don't think it's really about putting out a list of grievances, but celebrating in solidarity that we believe that every worker should be compensated. Families should not have to, again, just survive, but rather thrive. And economic justice is about making sure families make livable wages.
The fight for a $15 minimum wage was among the themes at today's rally. Organizers say the city has made progress improving workers' rights, but say there is still work to be done. A Worcester jury finds a man guilty of first-degree murder in the killing of a fellow patient at UMass Memorial Medical Center. Aldo Dunphy is seen here at his arraignment in 2013. The Superior Court jury today found Dunphy beat, choked, and tried to suffocate Ratna Bhattari when the two were patients in the hospital's psychiatric ward. Dunphy will be sentenced Thursday morning. First-degree murder carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without parole. The man prosecutors say killed a local teen in 2012 is sentenced to 33 to 35 years in prison today. James Howes pleaded guilty in the killing of 19-year-old Joseph Webster. Laura Corey was sentenced last summer to 18 to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter in the same case. Webster had been giving the couple rides to a Providence and to a Northborough motel. And the day he was killed, he picked up the couple and brought them to the Motel 6 in Northborough. Prosecutors say there was a fight between Webster and Howes. They say Webster was stabbed to death. A state trooper is being credited with getting a driver safely to shore after he apparently drove off Interstate 395 and into a pond. Happened around 2 this afternoon. It's unclear what caused the vehicle to veer off the roadway. Fire department in Auburn says it went down an embankment and landed in the water of Eddy Pond. The driver of the truck, an adult male, was the only one in the vehicle. He was conscious when brought to shore. The driver was transported to the hospital. The cause of the accident is under investigation. A church in Worcester is closing its doors after 88 years of service. Our Lady of Mount Carmel held its final Mass on Sunday. The impact of the church closing is affecting many longtime parishioners. Our Brittany Schaefer has the story.
Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church held its last Mass Sunday. The 88-year-old Catholic church closed with little warning.
A lot of people were caught off guard by the suddenness of the closing, and all the time that it's been talked about for the last few years, everybody thought that they'd have, a warning of 2 or 3 months.
The city told me Friday they could close it down immediately because they were so concerned. And I was concerned because I wanted to be able to say goodbye to the people.
The Worcester Parish is home to many in the city's Italian-American community. It is facing $1.3 million worth of repairs. The leaking roof and front wall of the church were among the list of reconstruction the church didn't have money to pay for.
One of the major issues for us is the highway, plus the Blackstone River runs underneath it, plus the land was swampland. So we've got a lot of things against us.
Every time they did some work, they found additional work that needed to be done, which was worse than the work that they were undertaking at that time.
Hundreds gathered for the 11:30 Mass Sunday and shared memories of their history with the Lady of Mount Carmel Church.
The special moment we had here at Mount Carmel is when our younger daughter walked down the aisle in her wedding.
I received all my major sacraments here, and my parents were buried in this church.
I was an altar boy here. Okay, so it's been a very long time.
The parish will join with Our Lady of Loretto Church on Massasoit Road, but Dominic Mercurio is still praying for a miracle.
We're carrying it over to Loretto, but we certainly hope that between now and in the next few days we can find some way to keep this church. That's just my personal hope and prayer.
Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
Parishioners of Our Lady of Mount Carmel are planning a prayer vigil at the church for Wednesday evening. According to new data released by the state, more people are dying from opioid-related overdoses than ever before in Massachusetts. This as the state spends millions to fight the epidemic devastating cities and towns. The state's Department of Public Health says there were 1,379 confirmed opioid-related deaths in 2015. The number is up almost 8% from the year before, and it's a 162% increase since 2010. More than half of the reported deaths had a positive screen for fentanyl, a sedative users mix with heroin. The data also shows first responders treated almost 12,000 opioid-related incidents last year and administered Narcan nearly 13,000 times. With that in mind, police departments in central Massachusetts took part in a drug take-back program this weekend. They collected a large amount of medication and prescription drugs. It's just one way officers are trying to fight the state's opioid epidemic. Our Andy Madison has our report.
This photo shows just a small portion of all the prescription drugs collected by police in central Massachusetts this weekend. Webster Police, one of many partnering with the DEA for a drug take-back day.
A lot of the addictions that we see with some of the hardcore drugs such as heroin begins with pills. And a lot of those pills, kids will go into their parents' medicine cabinets and they start experimenting with the pills they find there.
Leicester Police collected more than 130 pounds of drugs this weekend, already more than half what they collected all of last year. Since they started doing the drug take-back program, Chief Hurley says they've collected more than 1,000 pounds of medication.
The ones that are very popular right now are the Oxycontin. So we're always looking to get that off of the street.
From Leicester to Webster, people dropped off medication, no questions asked, in an effort to keep them off the streets and out of the hands of drug abusers. The program takes on special significance because of the state's opioid epidemic. Officers we spoke with say this weekend's collection is an indicator of how big the problem is.
We're not going to arrest our way out of this opioid problem. We're not going to Narcan our way out of it. And Narcan is a life-saving drug, but it only buys us time.
The Take-Back Day happens twice a year, and police departments have been set up to take drugs all year round.
It's not the solution, but it's a solution, is to get rid of those old unwanted medications by getting rid of them through an event such as this.
Reduces the opportunity that those narcotics are going to end up out on the streets with some type of a diversion, whether it's a theft by a family member, a housebreak, or something like that. So it has a tremendous impact on our community.
Andy Madison, Worcester News Tonight.
And as Andy mentioned, there are those drug take-back boxes at police departments 24/7 every day of the week. More than 24 professionals who work with area youth complete an important training program this week. The 12th Annual Youth Worker Training Institute held its graduation Monday. It's the end of a 16-week educational program for youth workers. This is the largest graduating class the Youth Worker Training Institute at Clark University has had in Worcester. Scott Dowling is among the 28 graduates and says the best part is knowing everyone in the room will make a difference in the lives of young people.
Almost like a transition point from the beginning of my career to sort of like the next step. I feel like I've grown professionally, been able to do a lot of networking, met a lot of great people. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Keynote speaker for this year's graduation was City Councilor Christian King. Former Patriots defensive lineman and Burncoat High School graduate Ron Brace was laid to rest today in Springfield. A celebration of his life was held at St. John's Congregational Church. Brace died at his family's home last week, and a source told the Boston Globe Brace died of an apparent heart attack, but an official cause has not been released. Brace grew up in Springfield, but came to school here in Worcester, where he was a star in both football and track at Burncoat High School before playing for Boston College and eventually the Patriots. Ron Brace was just 29 years old. First the Summer Olympics, now IndyCar. Neither event has made it past the planning stages, leading some to ask, is Boston capable of attracting and hosting big events in the future? Our Allison King takes a closer look.
I think we have a lot of great streets for Indy racing, and I think having the European cars here would be just fantastic.
As a big fan of car racing, Jaden Fleming was very disappointed to hear the Grand Prix has just pulled out of Boston, citing, among other problems, zoning issues. And it was a bummer for many sports enthusiasts still depressed over watching the Boston 2024 Olympic bid go up in smoke.
We get the big idea, and then all of a sudden it starts to bog down a little bit, and we start to get that red tape wrapped around our feet a little, and can't get ourselves extricated in the end.
We should have been able to get it done.
Former Boston City Councilor Mike Ross says the city needs to send a message it's open for business to try and make it easier, not harder, to get permitting through.
And sometimes it requires these neighborhood groups to, get the best deal they can, but then move on, not to necessarily have veto power.
Sorry to hear that. It's a shame.
George Hightower wonders why other great cities are able to pull off world-class events while Boston takes a pass.
There are so many cities, including Monaco, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, that have been doing Formula One races, which are much more difficult on the streets and on the citizens. They've been doing them for decades.
Do you encourage some groups in this city to lighten up a little bit?
I think there are certain times that I think people should take a deep breath and see what the event is beforehand.
Mayor Marty Walsh says the Indy race could have been a great event and the interest level was extremely high. Any chance that could be reversed?
We'll see. I'm not sure at this point.
Hoping maybe?
Well, I will see. I'm not sure at this point.